system for about 10 years. I've used that piece of technology to learn all sorts of skills, data analytics, business analysis, project management, just using low-code tools, including business intelligence and analytics tools, which I love. It's like the logic of code, but you don't need to learn how to code. And today I'm going to talk about the Salesforce data model, what people use Salesforce for from a data perspective, basically anything that meets the intersection of data and Salesforce. So to get started, let's talk a little bit about what Salesforce is. So Salesforce is a CRM, which means customer relationship management. So they started about 15 years ago. They went to an Oracle convention. They had a fake protest, and it was no more software, right? They were just chanting this. They were one of the first cloud software tools out there, and it was a really amazing way to launch what they did there. So initially, a CRM, in a very classic sense, is Sales Cloud. So this is managing your accounts, your contacts, and your sales opportunities. So if I'm a sales guy or a saleswoman, and I have 100 accounts, I'm supposed to be calling IBM, and I'm supposed to be calling local leaders, and possibly selling them something, I would manage that stuff in Salesforce. And I'd manage potential opportunities I have with them in Salesforce. And then Salesforce said, you know what, let's also manage tickets or cases, right? And then they said, well, we can also send the emails out of the system, and then they said, well, let's do some analytics and let's allow third-party people to access the tool as well. And then they came out with this, which I really like, the platform. And what that means is, I'll get more into detail later, but basically what it means is all the tools we have on our platform, we can allow you to build your own thing, your own cloud. So it's a one cohesive tool to do any sort of business process, and all of the pieces of data in Salesforce you can report on. So that's kind of in a nutshell what the tool is. I'm going to kind of go through it now from a more nerdy data perspective about what Salesforce is. So this is Sales Cloud. At the center of the universe is your customer, your account. And you have contacts on the account, one-to-many relationship, and you have activities, and this is tasks, phone calls, events, and then you have sales opportunities. You also have a one-to-many relationship between opportunities and activities, but it gets try to simplify it. So then Salesforce said, let's add service tickets, right? This is when you call Comcast on the phone, and they say, what's your name? Let me validate you, and then they log a ticket in Salesforce. So next time you call, they know you already complained last week. And then they said, if we're managing when the Wendy's account is going to close, well then let's be able to add a quote onto that. So we can use that data and pass it forward, so the sales rep doesn't need to re-enter data. And then let's put products on that quote. And then let's just add a little more data, and now we have a contract, right? So they just kept going further and further down the sales line. And the reason this is kind of important from a data perspective is when you have this, it helps you do this, and you have this, it helps you do this, and so on. So if you have an opportunity with quotes and products on it, let's say your quote is advertisements on the radio for a year, well then it's really easy to say that's $1 million opportunity because you already put this on it, so we can measure that. And then your sales manager can see you have $1 million pipeline. So they just started to build this system that really took over how organizations run. And then they just kept going, right, to back-end stuff. If you have an opportunity with quotes and products on it, well, why don't we just say, let's invoice those products, right? So it's just one system to rule them all here. On the other side, SLAs, those are service level agreements. So that's if someone needs to call you X number of times or when you go to, if any of you have a Tesla, Tesla uses Salesforce to do this, and if you sign a service contract with them, they owe you a certain number of services. That would be an SLA. And then entitlements is a similar concept. So this is, let's say we wanted to make the women in data meetings object. Well, all those tools we have here, all the custom fields, we can put them on this object, and we can build our own app, within a low-code environment. And we can report on it, and we can use Salesforce Einstein. And Salesforce Einstein is kind of like custom objects. It's a general purpose tool for low or no code machine learning. So I can say, take this field from here and this field from here, and tell me what are the odds that my deal is going to close next month, right? And you can do that in a no-code environment, which is very unique. And then Community Cloud, this is you as the customer are actually interacting with Salesforce and you don't even know it. So if you go onto AT&T's website or Charles Schwab and you enter a service ticket and then you see updates, you're actually inside their Salesforce instance, but on a website. So it's not integrated with Salesforce, you are in their instance. So they've basically found a way to involve the customer inside internal systems, generating data for their data warehouses and to know exactly when to call you and all that stuff. So that's the data model behind a lot of Salesforce. This is how Salesforce describes it in a much more marketing-friendly way. So what's going on here is this is Sales Cloud, right? What this really is objects, Salesforce objects or tables that they've put together and said, we call this Sales Cloud. So they're basically selling their own app on their own platform, right? You can build your own app on their platform, but they can sell you one as well. There's also App Exchange, and this is tens of thousands of apps that other people built on Salesforce that are for sale as a monthly fee on the Salesforce platform. It's the #1 business app store in the world. Is the Salesforce App Exchange. So you have all this data in Salesforce. What are you going to do with it, right? So this is a very typical business analytics value chart. We start out here, and this is how many opportunities do you have, how many contacts do you have. It's just counting stuff. This is, are you completing your workload, are you doing what you need to do? This is where I spend a lot of my time. This is leading indicators. So if you want to close $1 million in business, you need 10 million in pipeline. If you want 10 million in pipeline, you got to make 100 phone calls. If you want to make 100 phone calls, how many hours do you have to spend on the phone? So you can do leading indicators. It's not really predicting the future, it's just called leading indicators. And then at the very top, which is where a lot of marketers like to talk, but a lot of work needs to be done, is cognitive analytics. And this is where the system will describe something such as you should offer a 20% discount, and then the system will actually change the rules. So let's say your manager is saying, anything greater than 15% off, you need an approval. Well, with cognitive analytics, the system will recommend to the system administrator, you should change it to 20%, and it might even do it automatically, right? So this is a strange new world where the system is determining the business rules. And this is just a couple examples. This is kind of where people sometimes live. How many of this do you have? How many of that do you have? But this is where you should live. This is much more interesting. This is, this is, hey, we suggest you change your discount, right? This is providing rationale. I know we all know in the machine learning world that is incredibly hard to tell the user why something is the case, but it's how you gain trust, right? So it's really important. Tweaking rules, this is really interesting. There was an old CEO that gave me this example, and he said that if you tell someone that over 20% off and they need an approval, then what is every sales rep going to do? They're going to offer 19% off, right? So by having that approval bar there, you are actually changing behavior, right? So you're using data to change behavior, and the approval never even has to be used. But you're changing behavior by recommending that this is when the approval will happen. And what's the point of software if you're not actually changing behavior, right? If you give someone a tool to use and it doesn't change what they do, you haven't accomplished anything. So in terms of reporting on the data in Salesforce, I have kind of the images of 3 tools up here. This is the Salesforce reporting engine. It's a great tool, but it's only usable for data that's natively in Salesforce. So if you get any sort of Salesforce license, the nonprofit one to enterprise, anywhere in between, you get this tool. If you have an Excel spreadsheet, this tool will not help you, right? So you have to take that data and upload it into Salesforce, be natively there, and then you can use this. Salesforce Einstein is kind of 2 sides. It's this machine learning general marketing concept that's all over the platform. And it's also Einstein Analytics, which we'll hear about later today. And that's what's called a BI, business intelligence tool. And a business intelligence tool can take data from multiple systems. So you can take your Salesforce data, you can take your Excel spreadsheet, you can take your MailChimp data, and this tool will put it all together, right? That tool is in competition with Tableau, it's in competition with Microsoft Power BI. They're all really solid tools. What's interesting, I have Tableau here, which is another great business intelligence tool, is that Salesforce just bought Tableau. So, I don't know what's going to happen with that. That's interesting to know. This is how you measure the data in Salesforce. Every single transaction, every single thing your service and sales rep to do, it all creates data, and you can measure it. And I've talked a lot about sales and service reps. In my role today, I'm implementing Salesforce in the Department of Social Services, and we're using the platform cloud. So it's just totally custom apps. So for example, the immigration department needs to get counties to send in forms. And before we came along, it was all paper, right? It was literally through the mail. And then after they got the surveys back, they would send it off to a separate team at UC Berkeley that would analyze the data. And of course, it was in a horrible format. But now it's self-service analytics, right? These policy people, they're not data people, they're policy people, can do their own analysis on their own. So it's a great tool for any sort of business process. So that's all I got. I'll take questions. That's my contact info. That has a lot of information stored in there. So we do questions. Is that a thing?
Yeah.
Any questions?
Are you allowed to upload custom machine learning models onto Salesforce?
Yeah. So there's a lot of strong APIs in Salesforce. So they do their own thing. They also work with IBM Watson Analytics, which I think you can put your own custom models into. And if you totally have your own custom models, you can send them in with different APIs. I've used something called Simple Salesforce, which is a Python library. I'm not a very good coder. It's one line of code to log into Salesforce with Python. So it's a pretty solid tool.
So we're actually using Salesforce, not Einstein, but we're using Salesforce to handle like a sort of like a lead bucket. So have you noticed an increase in conversion for people not just using regular Salesforce before switching over into like Einstein and whatnot for lead management?
So when you say Einstein, do you mean the analytics tool or like just the general purpose Einstein?
The analytics tool for lead management.
So the analytics tool, just for lead management, I think is a bit overkill. There's some basic lead metrics. I think the most important one is how fast you're responding. right? So when you go on a website and you're interested in something, if someone calls you within 5 minutes, your chances of being more interested are just exponentially higher than if they call you 3 days later.
Yeah.
I just don't know if Einstein is necessary until you have tens of thousands of leads that you want to analyze.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So as you start implementing Salesforce solutions for someone, what are some of the common pitfalls that you run into that is, maybe something already using Salesforce or you're going to put their data into it? Are there things that people have found that make it really hard just to analyze that information and move up the chain of enlightenment?
Yeah, there's plenty of stuff, and we could talk after if you like, but I would say number one is it's such a flexible, wide tool that it's very easy to do what's called lift and shift, which is take your old process and just do it in Salesforce. But I would advise against that, right? You should change as an organization. You should change your process. You should use the best practices of Salesforce instead of just coding your way to exactly what you did before. The other flip side of that is governance. So once you have the tool, your organization starts getting really excited about it, and they just start doing everything in Salesforce. And now you have, your one Salesforce admin that's all of a sudden managing an entire company, right? So you need a governance body that has nothing to do with technical, that says this is the decisions we're going to make in Salesforce. There's really conservative models where you can't touch anything, unless you get approval from IT and it's once a month. And then there's super liberal models like at Google, since everyone works 100 hours a week and everyone's a developer, they just let everyone have systematic access, right? And then they just fix stuff at night. So it depends on your company culture. Yes.
So you had mentioned about invoicing at one of your slides. So the next step to me would be, say, accounts receivable. So
Yeah.
do you integrate with other softwares, or what are the most, common softwares that you integrate for like financials and other business processes?
Once you start getting further towards the back end, right, invoicing, accounts receivable, accounts payable, asset management, Salesforce is not as strong. You can use it, but people just send it straight over to an ERP, right? And it can work with any ERP, right? It's whatever ERP is going to be best for you. Most big ERPs have great APIs, and Salesforce has great APIs. So it's about the process and about the need. The technology choice is I think open. You next.
How are they from a data security standpoint?
Salesforce?
Yeah.
Well, they were the first cloud software that convinced organizations to actually use them, right? Big companies to use them, and they've come a long way. They have government cloud now, which is servers only in the U.S. and they have a whole big spiel about it. But these days, people don't seem to care quite as much. They kind of come to believe it. I use a website called trust.salesforce.com, which has all the different servers and how often they go down. I've been using it for 10 years, and I think I've seen it go down 5 or 6 times, or maybe half an hour.
How easy to customize the access restrictions?
Access, yeah, it's super broad and dynamic. It's hard in the fact that you need to learn the tool, but whatever kind of restrictions you wanted are possible. There's just so many, the profile page is become too big, right? So you spend a couple hours learning how to use the profile page, and you can do any sort of restrictions you want.
Can rules set based upon ownership of data? For example, if I'm part of an opportunity,
Yes.
then I should be the only one who accesses it.
Yeah, you can. I mean, companies like IBM use it for thousands of employees in one Salesforce instance, right? So the stuff has been tested. Where I work at social services, it's like 100 different silos, and no one is allowed to see anyone else's stuff because we're talking about, children issues, and it's all very private, and it's become overly complex. That's why I say governance is key and standardization is key. But you can do all of that. You just might create a maintenance nightmare for yourself a couple of years down the road. Yeah.
I think that Salesforce is a great tool. I know it does a lot. Specifically, what you said about it has an app exchange part of it.
Yeah.
Is that like the Apple App Store or the Android App Store, like the Google Play? Is it like those kind of apps to download?
It is kind of like that. So it's you know, when you do an Apple app, Apple is your operating system, right? When you use a Salesforce app, Salesforce is your operating system or platform. The difference is a lot of their apps are $15, $20 a user a month. You know, it's all business apps, right? And most of the big companies out there have Salesforce apps. DocuSign is a very, very popular one. So instead of building your own signing tool, or instead of Salesforce building its own, you just incorporate the DocuSign app. And it's where a lot of other app companies get a huge portion of their revenue is through the Salesforce ecosystem.
So DocuSign is a,
I think we have time for one more question.
Are you the one? Oh, wait.
I wasn't the first one. Not excited.
Two more, we'll do two more questions?
Sure.
Okay, two more questions. Yep.
I'm just curious, have you ever had an instance where you deployed next to SAP and like had the two systems talk with each other, or does Salesforce kind of like do that? So.
Yes, SAP as the back end, as the ERP, fairly common.
Oh.
And you know, technically the integration, not that complicated. It's more about the process and make sure you do it with a team that really understands your SAP instance. Right? It's not about the technical, it's about actually doing that mapping. For example, if you're trying to do subscription billing on old SAP, you know, you can jam it through, but it's a bad idea, right? So the technology is not the issue, right? And you have a question?
Oh, yeah, I just have a question. From a size perspective, like how much data can you put in Salesforce? Like if you're working with a larger organization, like what's really kind of like the sweet spot for Salesforce?
That's a really good question. So when you sign up for users, they give you data and they give you, I can't remember the two terms they use. One is basically storage of files, which is fairly large, not really a problem. And the other is your data, which is using Salesforce records to store opportunities or contacts, whatever it might be, right? And that, it's, you know, they give you a generous portion per user, but if you're going from the 10,000s to maybe the millions of data records, all of a sudden they're going to start charging you a lot of money. So they give you a good starting point, but if you're trying to load 500,000 records, in terms of how much space it actually uses, it's not very much space, but they'll charge you a frustratingly large amount of money for that. So the sweet spot is anything below 50 or 100,000 records, I would say.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brian.